Live your life, boy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Conspiracy Farm, where we don't start the conspiracies, we just add the water. And now, your host of the most state-of-the-art, most informed podcast on the interweb, I present to you Pat Miletich and Jeffrey Wilson. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for war?
Yeah, rear naked choke of Cocker Spaniel, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Bro.
Change the neighborhood up.
Conspiracy Farm. Go. Check it out.
Another one for the archives, ladies and gentlemen. We live in this absolute world of madness thus far. I'm so very grateful to have this gentleman on today. I always enjoy his research. It's always so very thorough, man. And when I saw an episode he had done, when I saw this economic stuff and I saw how bad it could get, I was thinking to myself, man, this is the reset, or this is a reset that potentially lends itself to this conversation we had not too long ago, and we're going to get into all the implications of this. Patrick, how we doing tonight, champ?
I'm doing great. I know we're with limited time here with Mr. Corbett, so let's get right after it, brother.
Yeah. No, so like I said, man, this whole thing. James, how are you doing? James Corbett, he is the host of the Corbett Report. How we doing, my friend?
I'm doing A-OK personally.
Yeah.
I'm not liking what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's awfully scary, man, and there's really, I have seemingly no end in sight, and I'm so anxious to pick your brain on this. Again, we had a conversation, I don't know, a few months ago, just about climate change and how that's going to necessitate a larger economic reset and a whole different way of life, the Internet of Things, smart grids, et cetera, et cetera. We are dealing with some crazy stuff right now, man. And I'm so glad after I had that thought, I'm like, man, I got to get James on. You just made a video and a series of videos, as you do, which really addressed what was going on in my brain, specifically how this was pre-gamed before many of times, prognosticated years ago, and it's all starting to play out. And as everybody lose their mind about this virus and this biological threat, et cetera, it's, as we're finding out, it's just a ruse and just a guise for a much, much larger play. So if you don't mind, well, let me ask you like I've asked everybody else. Do you see the reaction meeting the threat, or the threat meeting the is the reaction comparable to what we're seeing as far as the threat?
As soon as I started writing about this, in the Forecaster, I wrote an editorial called Coronavirus, the Cures Will Be Worse Than the Disease, and I stand by that. I think regardless of what you think about this virus, real or man-made or whatever, comes from a lab or it's a bioweapon or it doesn't exist, whatever you think about it, the reaction that we are seeing to this is infinitely scarier to me than the virus itself. And we see that from every angle. And I think you said the word that is going through my head these days, the reset. This is the reset. In every sense, but I mean, let's just take the most commonly used sense of that, the global financial reset. People have been talking about that for years. It is happening now, and it's happening from every angle all at once. And it's not just the Great Depression that we are clearly heading into right now, but it's on top of that, the oil price war that's happening at the same time that, as some have pointed out, the petrodollar ended last week. The global monetary backbone that has been in place since the U.S. went off the gold standard in 1971 has been the petrodollar. That ended last week. We are in completely uncharted territory right now.
Is this a concerted effort? I've got to interrupt you there really quick. Is this a concerted effort between Japan and Russia to implode our economy, with Russia and Saudi Arabia battling with the output of oil and this coronavirus? I don't know. What you tell me.
I don't think it's as thought out as that. I don't think that this was a coordinated attack in that sense. Some of what's happening actually just makes sense given the economics of what's happening. I mean, there is going to be a absolute, not just a slowdown in economic output and industrial activity, but almost a complete seizure globally. Absolutely unprecedented. That is going to affect oil prices. But then on top of that, the dumping of and the glut, the unprecedented glut in the oil markets right now, which, oh, by the way, peak oil theorists, how did that theory work out for you? We have never seen a glut like this in the history of the oil industry. It is insanity. And there are aspects of this. I mean, there are people saying that this was a coordinated attack on the U.S. shale industry, for example, but it's way beyond that at this point. I mean, this is a fundamental economic reset. And Saudi Arabia is playing an interesting game here because they are on a knife edge in a number of different ways. And this cuts into their own revenues. And Saudi Aramco, I mean, you got to hand it to them. At least they got that. They sold off a lot of shares in that before it lost, I think, $500 billion in market cap over the last couple of weeks. It's just insanity, absolute insanity. I have no words for what's going on right now, but this is the reset.
And like you said, the reset's going to manifest in so many different ways. And we've said before, man, and we've really kind of jam-packed our show. We've done more content really we ever have as everybody's home and working from home, et cetera. Along with the reset, it's just medical martial law and how they're gonna kind of roll this out slowly and really scare the crap out of us. And I think a lot of what you said in a lot of your presentations, this is really just an extension of the psychological mind F of 9/11. That fear-based, trauma-based kind of psychology opens your mind up to this any possibility. Like, you're so scared you'll accept anything. And we've almost been that way for a long time when these problem reaction solutions things present themselves. But specifically, I mean, definitely 9/11, what that blank checkbook, and that's kind of what this is an extension of. I mean, not that wasn't had global ramifications, but this too has global ramifications socially, economically. I have to ask you, with how they're playing it out, there's no stone left unturned, from your largest companies to your smallest bartenders like me who's had everything closed. Military on the ground, they're anticipating obviously some measure of social unrest. I hate to sound like a broken freaking record because I literally have said it every episode, but Pat, by God, you were so on point. Look at how people are behaving to themselves right now with their bellies full. And this is just the beginning. Like you said, regardless if this was a work or it's real, the ripple effect of it is going to be real and it's going to last for a very long time. How do you see this playing out socially and economically?
Well, let me say I spot on agree 100% with your take on the psychological impact of this being like 9/11. The martial law lockdown police state that we are being steeped into right now has to do with a virus in the exact same way the Patriot Act had to do with international terrorism, which is to say not at all. The Patriot Act was already sitting there on the shelf waiting for years, and then 9/11 comes along and they dust it off. Here you go. Here's the Patriot Act. We got you. And now, as I've pointed out in my recent medical martial law episode, for decades now, they've been laying the infrastructure for pandemic response in all sorts of model state emergency health powers act and the CBP pandemic response and 2010 Rockefeller Foundation funded lockstep scenario.
And this is all addressed in your recent video, Medical Martial Law 2020, ladies and gentlemen. Go check it out, James Corbett. And you are absolutely right. There was a litany of things. The Model State Emergency Health Powers Act from December 2021. There was a German article in 2013. I'm sorry? Did I say the wrong date?
You said 2021. It's 2001.
2001. I'm sorry. I'm speaking too goddamn fast. But there was a German article in 2020 alluding to an article in 2013 about a risk analysis in civil protection as it relates to another epidemic, if you will, or pandemic, which basically equated to mandatory vaccines, which I think is a lot of this, what's going on, Event 201. This was prognosticated. This was war game for a minute. This is not some oops. This just popped out of nowhere.
And some people say that means that this event right now, that what's taking place right now, is therefore a staged event. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Like anything else, any crisis that comes along, they can take advantage of it. And it's to a certain extent, it is just a numbers game. It is just a waiting game because pandemics do happen naturally every few decades. So if you lay out the infrastructure, when next time a pandemic happens, whether it's really the Black Death that people are talking about, or whether it's just
the scary shit about the Event 201, it was just like everything was so specific. They're gonna say it's from bats, it's coronavirus. I mean, it was just too.
But it came from South America there. So
well, yeah, the hog farmers, yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's exactly right. That's people like, oh no, what are you talking about?
But you're right. I mean, the similarities were eerie, and one of those things that is not really that significant, but it's so one of those things I found when I was doing the medical martial law episode. I didn't realize this at Event 201. They were giving out plushies.
I saw
to
that.
all of the people who participated to commemorate the event, and the plushies are coronavirus microbes,
little stuffed animals.
They were giving these out in October 2019,
so twisted.
1 month before patient zero, supposedly.
Well, and then amidst all of this, Bill Gates steps down, from Microsoft, from Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah, record number of CEOs have stepped down in January.
And again, having this.
James?
I'm sorry.
How many CEOs have stepped down in the past say 3 months?
I don't have the
Hundreds,
number,
right?
but I do know
A
it
lot.
was a record January anyway.
Well, and then you got
Right,
Senator,
right.
obviously Senator Rand Paul caught it today, which is crazy. But you have certain members of Congress who were selling stocks prior to this. I mean, that clearly has to be talked about. And obviously, we talk about accountability all the time on this show. One of them was Dianne Feinstein, who had a Chinese spy driving for her for 20 freaking years, and nothing happened. And now she sells her stock, and what? Is she going to sit in front of Congress and account for this? I mean, it's just crazy.
What U.S. senator, can I ask you for sanity, what U.S. senator hires a Chinese citizen to drive for their chauffeur, their limo? Who does that?
I don't know. That's bizarre.
When again, adding to this climate, you got cops releasing prisoners. You got them saying they're not going to go after such. I think Sonny Puzikas, our former Russian Spetsnaz, was on. You have that in the private meeting, the Hill Street Blues, go be tough on the street or whatever they say. You don't publicly declare that. That's the freaking horn of Gondor to psychopaths. And we're already seeing it. Someone sent me an email about people dressed in white coats going house to house. Hey, we got to come in and test your house and see if you have blah, 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 blah. How do you, I mean, again, do you...
Society. This is not going to be pretty. And as you say, this is at the beginning with people's bellies full. I mean, extend this out a month, even a month, and it's going to be insanity.
Back to the senators and congressmen, the numbers that are testing positive, and somebody, Wes Gillum, just brought it up. Good point, Wes, because I wanted to say this. How many of them are going to come down with the coronavirus and won't be able to vote on a lot of the stuff that's going on? That's coming.
Oh, but don't worry, they're prepared for that. Newsweek just had a big report about what the U.S. government is going to do in the event that they can't even hold a quorum with Congress. They have continuity of government operations, and they have
Rex 84, baby.
Set up. Wow, it's like they almost prepared.
Almost knew it was coming.
Rex 84, right. But again, it could just be.
To be fair, the infrastructure for continuity of government has been in place for decades and decades. It was implemented in 2001, 9/11.
And it's a smart thing to have. I mean, you want to make sure. You want to make sure everything's covered. It's a smart thing to have.
The officially declared emergency from 9/11 has been renewed every single year by every president.
Yes.
And it's still in effect to this day.
So I was talking to a friend just before we went on air. Yeah, you were absolutely right. That they've signed off on it every year. Why these new declarations? Does that change something as far as? I mean, because if you're a national declaration.
Read Peter Dale Scott. He's done some pioneering work on the continuity of government operations that were laid out by Rumsfeld and Cheney back in the 70s, going back as far as the 70s. They continued their work during the Reagan administration in the 80s. They were the ones that were engineering and masterminding this, and those plans went into effect in 2001. And the theory is that in order to continue the continuity of government operations that were enacted that day, legally, behind their smokescreen of legal nonsense, they have to renew that a national emergency. The national emergency is what makes those operations operational.
So let me ask you, because some people obviously have different reads on all this. Whether Trump's a part of it, et cetera, et cetera. Is he the white hat? So how does this with anybody who might think, oh man, the globalists are really getting their ass kicked on this. This is, in my opinion, tell me if that's right or wrong. And in my opinion, how does this? I think this facilitates even more the technocracy we talked about, the Internet of Things, the complete removal of physical cash, fiat currency. It's all digital. Like I said, we're seeing restaurants that are staying open. They only take credit. I think that's a part of this too. Talk to me about that. As far as is this really? Is it hurting the globalists? I think it is. I'm sorry, I think it's not. But it's. I think this is ushering in the technocracy.
Yeah. There are aspects of this that you could argue that, and some people have. I know I saw an op-ed from Pat Buchanan saying this is the death of the New World Order or something like that, and I've seen this is the end of globalism kind of things. But on the flip side of that, that's not what I believe. I see things like, will the coronavirus? A global challenge needs a global response. That was recently up in Der Spiegel, which is basically exactly what you would expect in the face of any global crisis of any kind. We need more of a coordinated global response, and it's going to happen, and here's why. Globalists are licking their chops, just salivating, waiting for all of the powers that are going to accrue to them out of this. Every single globalist agenda item is being checked off.
Fast forward.
And as you say, there's no aspect of this that isn't. I mean, even the cashless society push, cash, it could be dirty. Actually, it's funny because that's been making the rounds recently in news stories. It could be on cash. And then when you go back to the original research that they did on this, they found, the coronavirus will survive on cardboard for 3 days and will survive on plastic for 24 hours or whatever it is. They didn't test banknotes of any kind, and epidemiologists and others are saying that is the least the vector you have to be least scared about. You do not be worried about getting coronavirus from cash. It's going to be from people coughing in your face. So, I mean, it's total nonsense, but that's just one example. But I mean, literally every box is being checked right now. Internal passports, and the Chinese have been using their payment app, which everybody uses essentially because they are essentially going cashless in China right now. And their payment app literally has color-coded green, orange, or red. How safe are you? If you get green, then you can go and travel or shop here or there or whatever. If you're red, that means you're
that
bad,
old social credit, baby. That's social credit.
Take you away. It's exactly right. Social credit. The economic reset is happening. Like everything is occurring to the globalists who have been preparing for this for decades. In every legislative and economic sense. This is not going to be the end of globalism.
With the NDAA, with the National Declaration of Emergency, Patriot Act, the NDAA, they can kind of disappear you with no legal recourse, etc. With the DOJ now wanting to expand their powers to disappear people, I mean, why is it, that's almost redundant? They were already able to do that. Why almost publicly state that again? With this new expansion of powers,
specifically military, and was specifically targeting terrorists, suspects, whatever. This DOJ that they're trying to get these powers is literally if they suspect that you've been somewhere where another person has been that had later tested positive, blah, blah, blah. And how do they know where you've been? Oh, it's because, as the Seattle Times is now reporting, the U.S. government is working with every big tech company to collect your geolocation data so they can retroactively, once you test positive, they can go back 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long they want to go, and see every place you've been, every person you've been in contact with.
But ladies and gentlemen, please rewind that and play that again, because that should scare the absolute shit out of you. Well, even the CDC in 2017 expanded their quarantine powers, right?
2007.
Was it 7? Okay, my bad. But still, I mean, again, they're expanding.
The CDC, yes, no, sorry, 2017, you're right. They updated their pandemic quarantine powers in 2017. It was actually the last executive order on the Obama agenda. It was reviewed when the Trump administration came in, but eventually went ahead. So the CDC did gain new quarantine powers. I was thinking of the CBP, the Customs and Border Patrol.
It's hard to keep up, right?
Pandemic response plan that they put in place in 2007 that's operative right now. You got the National Security Council directing the White House response to this right now in conjunction with the intelligence agencies and the Department of Defense, of course, because this is national security, right? They're shutting down national borders. The longest undefended border in the world, Canada-U.S., now shut down to all non-essential traffic. Just insanity.
Well, now, I want to, again, and Sean Huffman just pointed it out, does anybody know how to operate ham radios anymore? And just during the California wildfires, and we know that ham radios are civilian run. You have to have a license to have one and operate one, but it's literally the civilians' last line of defense. When everything else breaks down communication-wise, ham radios are used during national security. And we know during the California wildfires that the governor of California had all the repeaters removed off of the towers in California. Coincidence? I really don't think so. I really don't think so. I think, all the repeaters
You're breaking up.
Ham radio repeaters were removed off rates, but I know it was in California they got removed off of.
But that's what I'm saying. When you bring all these ingredients together, shit like that, they're releasing prisoners. They're not going to arrest such and such. It's like it's the purge, man. Is that? I don't know. I'm like asking.
It really is. Yeah. This is absolute insanity, and you're so right about that. About ham radio, shortwave, whatever people can use is going to be the medium that people will be able to communicate. Because I'm telling you, the internet crackdown agenda is about to.
Yeah.
They're flipping the switch right now, and we saw that recently. The Fanksters all put out this joint statement that we're going to eliminate coronavirus misinformation from our platforms. We all know what that means. Facebook flipped the switch, and as a bug, they accidentally, tripped the super censorship switch. Every article, every post about coronavirus was being censored.
No, I literally, Pat.
Don't worry,
I posted something.
That switch.
I posted something completely benign, and they flagged it and took it down. They put it back up, and then actually sent me an apology. Never seen that before. But no, you're absolutely. But they're couching
but that's just the test of.
For sure. But they're
just
couching that in the like, hey, we got to send a lot of people home, so we just have this default mode on our algorithms to if you're posting Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, that's coming down. You know what I mean? It's just like they're not even having it. But, I mean, I know we don't have much more time, and I really want to get your thoughts on the next few weeks, man, and months. Trump just came on. Title 32, the National Guard activation, is now in New York, Washington, California, and is only going to spread. That's probably going to go to Chicago and your larger metropolitan areas. I know a lot of people don't like to hypothesize, even if it's really bad, but like I said, it's the writing on the wall is to me, is just so plain right now. How do you see this playing out here in the next few weeks? It is a reset. We can definitely agree. How bad does it get?
That's it. So I'm thinking best case scenario, which isn't going to be a good case anyway, but best case scenario, this does last a few weeks. There will be National Guard. There will be an all-out PR push for this, essentially. Don't worry, the National Guard are taking care of everything. They're distributing supplies. They're making sure no looting or craziness is happening. They're going to bring law and order. Everything's sunshine and rainbows. A few weeks from now, the orders are lifted, and you know what? Actually, okay, so it's not so bad. Not everyone's dying on the streets. We got through this. That's absolute best case scenario. People go back to work at that point. But I'm still thinking the global economic reset is baked into the cake at this point, including the global monetary reset. I'm thinking bank holidays and, switching out national currencies for whatever's coming next, that kind of craziness. And that's not necessarily going to happen in the next few weeks because the changeover of world reserve currency is not a unilateral decision. It has to be. I mean, they had the Bretton Woods Conference during World War II to sort out the new monetary order. They're going to need some version of that to sort it out, but it's baked into the cake. And the U.S. dollar skyrocketing and all commodities plunging at the same time because of the craziness that's going on and everyone liquidating and trying to get it into cash is a sign that is yet another sign. We cannot use this as the world reserve currency because it is literally plunging markets. It's causing absolute chaos. We need something else. Oh, good. We've been talking about this for over a decade now with the special drawing rights of the IMF. We just happen to have that waiting in the wings. The Chinese People's Bank of China governor has been talking about this for, I think, 11 years now, or 12 years that he first proposed. We need the SDR to take over the U.S. dollar.
That transfer from that resource-based economy to an energy-based economy. And the refuge was supposed to be cryptocurrencies, but as everything's played out in the last couple of weeks, cryptos have taken a bath, specifically Bitcoin, which was the leader.
Every commodity, everything out there is plunging in dollar valuation because the dollar is surging, and the dollar is only surging because everyone is getting into dollars right now, getting cash, physical cash,
and they're all
liquidating
run
all
away
of their
from it
holdings.
here pretty
That's
soon.
why the dollar is spiking.
What'd you say, Pat?
Now they're putting in trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars at any point at which that actually gets to start sucking into the economy. I mean, that's when you start getting into inflation. Well,
that's what I'm saying. Is that again part of the ingredients? Is that not hyperinflation 101? Is that not Zimbabwe type? I mean, when you're just pumping last week like $3, $4, $5 trillion.
You can't get inflation going because it's not being productively funneled into the economy. It's all sitting in bank accounts, Federal Reserve bank accounts.
We're hunkered down at home and self-quarantining, so we can't put it back into the economy. That totally makes sense.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So it's not, if it doesn't go into the economy, it's not going to cause the hyperinflation. But I mean, trillions upon trillions of dollars out there waiting to be soaked up is yet another reason why the dollar cannot function as world reserve currency going forward. It is changing. This is the start of the reset. Historians of a future era will say, 2020 is when the button was pushed.
Patrick, parting words for our boy, man. Last couple questions.
I'm going to push. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to push this out there. The thing that I brought up today, and Jeff and I talked about it briefly, was that prisoners are being released everywhere. And I said it's to make, I go, could it be to make room for possibly massive arrests? For who are they going to arrest? Do they have social indictments ready? Hope porn, as Jeff says. But look, it could be possible. Are they making room for potential looters? Are they making room for Pat, who's going to defend his family and his house with a gun? I don't know who they're making room for. I really don't. But while all this craziness is going on here, James. We have to bring this up. We can't let you go until you talk about this. While the shit is hitting the fan globally, things seem to be just fine in Japan, don't they?
Yeah, they seem to be, and that's the operative word here. And I'm just about to release a video about this so people can watch my channel where I show people what is happening here. You'd be surprised. Yeah, you think this is East Asia, like epicenter of the whole thing. People must be absolutely freaking out. Nope, not at all. There are school closures here, and there are some, the government has issued guidelines about not meeting in large groups, but actually most people are ignoring that anyway. It's cherry blossom viewing season, so everyone's out watching the cherry blossoms like usual. Everybody, bars, clubs, everything is open. And there's a specific reason for that. That reason is Tokyo 2020. They still are saying the Summer Olympics are going to go ahead as planned, on the schedule, as planned, with spectators internationally coming in. It's absolute insanity. This is not going to happen. Newsflash, Japanese government, it's not going to happen. But until they acknowledge that, until the games are officially postponed, they're going ahead, oh, don't worry, guys, everything's under control. We only have 1,000 cases, and that isn't spreading, and we're fine. Everything's under control. They're going business as usual. When they finally meet reality and realize the games aren't going to go ahead, that's when I expect the crackdown is going to come in Japan.
Does that extend to the U.S. 2020 election? Cancellation?
Yeah, that's going to be one hell of an interesting.
Martial law.
Who knows how that's playing out?
Well, and then look at how crazy will it be by then?
Law.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pat.
Martial law is on the phone again today with a former Navy good friend of mine, and he's out east now, and he was raised in the D.C. area, and he said. And he confirmed for me, yes, active military are being deployed domestically. Marines are being brought online. All of this stuff's going on. You don't bring out Bradley fighting vehicles and then expand on something really serious. And then I got another message from a CIA guy, agency guy, who was just at one of the military bases, I won't say where, but said that he saw a video that I posted of 20 miles of Humvees heading towards Chicago. And massive military operation. This won't take long, and that's all he would say. Massive military operation won't take long. And then when I talked to Naval Special Warfare guy, he said, dude, they have built massive walls and barriers in a 2-block radius around the White House. You can't even get near it. You can't even go anywhere near it. He goes, I've never seen anything like this before in my life. And that guy's been in all kinds of warfare settings, been through all kinds of shit. And he said, I've never seen anything like this. And look, considering what you've been through, what's your gut feeling? He goes, I'm sure nobody's ever seen it, but it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. He's freaked out by it. A lot of these guys are freaked out who have seen some pretty heavy stuff in their life. And I'm just sitting here going, man, this is hope for the best, but plan for the worst.
Let me just put that out there, is that this is the part that honestly it chills me to the core to think never before in human history have you locked down entire nations, telling them stay in your home, don't go outside, don't meet in groups of more than 10 people. This is absolutely completely unprecedented in the course of human history, and I'm thinking they're not doing this lightly. I mean, I don't think this is about the virus. I think
well, and that's what's so sad and scary, and everybody gets it now. More people are going to die from the fear and everything else having nothing to. People are obviously and sadly are dying from the virus, but I think way more. I mean, you're talking about the Secretary of the Army came on, like Pat said, they're opening up dormitories, they're opening up hotels for these triage and ICU units. That doesn't, for me, the numbers don't necessitate that. For me, that would seem like more of a holding or a detention or something, because again, it just doesn't add up numbers wise. James, you have been awesome, man. I know we got to let you go. Shout out where we can check you out. Ladies and gentlemen, James Corbett is the man, like some of the most thorough, concise research on a myriad of all kinds of subjects, man. He's really a great resource for that. And shout out where we can check you out, man.
Corbett CorbettReport.com, CORBETT report.com. You can find all my work. It's all there for free, and it's there specifically. I'm on YouTube and other social media platforms, but for how long, I cannot say.
Yeah.
But I am at CorbettReport.com till the bitter end, so go there and at least bookmark it.
Well, and you've always been very generous with your time as this plays out, because, you know, we're working from home. Please come back here in a couple of weeks so we can, you know, just kind of talk about what's going on over there. You know, when I go to bed at night, especially when this was happening, I would check out the Hang Seng market and the Nikkei markets just to kind of get a barometer of what's going to be going on here. Right. And like the last couple of weeks, it was just a bloodbath. So it's interesting to hear that things are relatively normal over there in Japan, but who knows how long it stays that way. James Corbett, ladies and gentlemen, the Corbett Report. Thank you so very much, champ. Love you, brother. Thank you for your time as well. Peace and so much live, you guys. Stay well. Wash your hands, I guess. Don't make out with bats, and we'll talk soon.